We have a wonderful panel, and we have a wonderful moderator. Jared Bowen, known to many of you, I think. If anyone watches Greater Boston, you see with great regularity Jared introduce, I particularly think he's one of the best people on live theater here in Boston, and we don't have enough people who actually follow live theater. And he comments on almost all the arts. So he's going to lead our distinguished panelists and introduce them as we explore the world of pop culture. Thanks so much for coming. Jared.
Sorry for being late. I think Lisa was analyzing people for their preppydom on our way across from the BPL over here today. But we'll start with David Rakoff today. In his book, Half Empty, David Rakoff writes about what, frankly, most of us are probably thinking most of the time, that it's a little more practical and even more productive to assume the power of negativity. As the cover of his book proclaims, no inspirational life lessons will be found in these pages, especially not with chapters like The Satisfying Crunch of Dreams Underfoot, where among many disappointments, the would-be movie star is told by his director on the set of a blockbuster that he has a future in films. Fired within the day, Rakoff suddenly understands the director meant not this film. David Rakoff is a two-time recipient of the Lambda Book Award for Humor. He's a contributor on PRI's This American Life, as well as to the New York Times Magazine, Outside, and GQ. Half Empty is his third collection, and in here, deliciously pessimistic essays, having just gone through a breakup where I still want all copies of Eat, Pray, Love destroyed. To me, David Rakoff is God.
This is, my mic fell out of my back belt lobe. Can you still hear me? You can all hear me? Cool, okay. What an amazing building. I'm going to besmirch it with filth. So it's vaguely laughable that I would ever be asked to be on a panel about pop culture, since I have a negative capacity to understand what trends are. In 1986, I was offered a job in Tokyo in what was then the burgeoning internet, and I quit within 12 hours because I thought they were such a bunch of losers. And then, that was in 82, and then in 86 I went, no, that was in 86. In 82 I went to a club in New York City called Danceteria, and it was just too loud and noisy, and I didn't like it. But that evening's entertainment was some whiny girl, rubber gasket bracelets, and I thought, well, she sucks. And it was Madonna, so I don't know what I'm talking about. Welcome. I thought I'd read this because we're wearing headsets, and it'll be made immediately apparent. This is from a larger piece in the book called Isn't It Romantic? The short answer to which is no, it isn't. There are 525,600 minutes in a year. I learned that from the musical Rent. It's the kind of pointless and pedantic breakdown that immediately reminds you of the kid in class who could tell you useless things like how much Belgium weighs. From the musical Rent, I also learned that the best way to mark the passing of these 525,600 minutes would be to measure them out not into Alfred Prufrock's joyless coffee spoons, but into something that Jonathan Larson, the writer of the musical, called Seasons of Love. What does that even mean, seasons of love? Perhaps you'd keep it in the door of your fridge. Seasons of Love would come in a foil-wrapped canister. Dehydrated onion would figure very prominently. There would be television commercials showing happy couples sprinkling their seasons of love over salads or laughingly feeding one another bites of baked potato festively speckled with the stuff, as if someone had just come in and celebrated New Year's all over your food. In the musical Rent, the characters live out their seasons of love in huge loft apartments. Some of them have AIDS, which is coincidentally also the name of a dreaded global pandemic that is still raging and has killed millions of people worldwide. In the musical Rent, AIDS merely seems to render you cuter and cuter. The characters in the musical Rent are creative types. They have tatterdemalion clothes. They're artists. Some of them are homosexual, and the ones who aren't homosexual don't even seem to mind. They screen their calls, and when it is their parents, they roll their eyes. They hate their parents. They are never going back to Larchmont. No way. They will stay here in New York City, living in their 2,000 square feet of picturesque poverty, being sexually free and creative. Here's some ways to broadcast how to be creative were you making an entertainment. Show a composer plinking out a tune on a piano. Have him scratch a few notes on some music paper. Have him plink some more. Suddenly, have him crash both hands down on the keyboard, bring them quickly up to his head, grabbing the hair at his temple, and have him scream, "It won't work!" Or show a writer sitting at a typewriter, reading the page he's just written. He realizes that it's shit. He tosses it behind him. Cue wastebasket overflowing with crumpled paper. Or perhaps you've not yet picked out an art form, but you just want to convey a more general sense of an easily bruised sensitivity in a deep well of pain. Well, find yourself a beautiful French girl with an enviable pair of breasts. Have her go slowly crazy. How will we, the audience, know that she is slowly going crazy? Well, see how she looks at herself as if gazing at a stranger in the mirror, and watch as she smears ever wider circles of her lipstick gradually on the outside of her mouth. She's crazy. Here's what they do in the musical Rent to show us that they are creative. Nothing. They do nothing. The songwriter spends 14 seconds noodling upon his guitar. The filmmaker shoots a lot of Super 8 footage, which makes him about as much of an artist as everybody's dad. Otherwise, they hang out. And hanging out can be marvelous, but hanging out does not make you an artist. A second-hand wardrobe does not make you an artist. Neither do a hair-trigger temper, melancholic nature, propensity for tears, hating your parents, nor even HIV. None of these make you an artist. They can help. But just as being gay does not make you witty. No, I'm actually looking at the church and wondering whether I'm allowed to say what I'm about to say. Just as being gay does not make you witty, you can suck a mile of cock, it will not turn you into Oscar Wilde, believe me. The only thing that makes one an artist is making art, and that takes the very opposite of hanging out. So when they sing the anthem of the show, it's a lie, really. Every song in the show is an anthem. It's like being trapped in the humid pages of a teenager's diary. So when they sing the title anthem of the show, "We're not going to pay this year's rent," followed by a barked cheer of "Rent, rent, 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 rent." My only question is, well, why aren't you going to pay this year's rent? It seems they're not going to pay this year's rent because rent is for losers, for uncreative types. Rent is for suits. By contrast, they are the last bastion of artistic purity. I know what it's like to feel invisible and ignored and young. I lived in Brooklyn a long time ago, about a block away from a prison. And during the day, the neighborhood bustled with lawyers, judges, criminals, bail bondsmen, private detectives. It was very exciting. I lived on a block in a little two-story building that had once been a coach house. We still had the red dirt floor in the basement from the 19th century. On the ground floor below me was an office that did what exactly? Resumes? Who can remember? What I do remember is the man whose office it was, Raul Rivas. Raul Rivas, that was his real name. Raul Rivas was knee-bucklingly handsome. Had my life been different, like if I'd been a hot girl with a driver's license, I might have put on a tube top and gone outside to wash my car in slow motion while Raul Rivas watched from his darkened office while a ceiling fan, I digress. But one time during the day, it must have been a weekend because I was at home, I could hear Raul Rivas having sex in the office downstairs. I skittered around my apartment like a cockroach on a frying pan, trying not to make noise while desperately looking for a knothole in the crappy floorboards. Eventually, I just lay down flat against the tile of the kitchen floor listening. Lying flat against the tile of the kitchen floor, listening to someone else have sex, is essentially my early 20s in a nutshell. I was robbed in that neighborhood twice, and there were days when it hardly seemed worth it to live in a horrible part of town just so that I could go daily to a stupid, soul-crushing, low-paying job, especially since, as deeply as I yearned to be creative for years and years, I was too scared to even try, so I did nothing. But here's something that I did do. I paid my fucking rent. Jonathan Larson died the day before the musical Rent opened, and the show went on to become a huge hit. It won the Pulitzer Prize. I heard 9/11 jokes long before it felt okay to say that maybe Rent was an insidious and middle-brow lie, a symptom posing as a cure, like watching a sex ed film narrated by gonorrhea. And that even though it was a terrible thing that he had died, and that, yes, New York had become far too expensive and inhospitable to young people who had tried to come there with dreams of making art, and how regrettable that the town's vibrancy and authenticity was being replaced by a culture-free, high-end retail clusterfuck of luxury retail condo buildings whose all-glass walls essentially required a populace that doesn't own bookshelves or consequently books, that it had become an orgy of cupcakes. Cupcakes. With the exception of Eucharist wafers, is there a baked good more bland, less evocative of that great urban metropolis of immigrants than the cupcake? And indeed, that AIDS is a devastating, horrible scourge to which I've lost many, many friends, but was it just me, or were others also leaving the theaters, rooting for the landlords? It's never easy to publicly oppose something that achieves brilliant, unstoppable heights. It can make you seem bitter. I once ran into a friend of mine and his mother at the movies, and the subject of Philip Roth came up. No surprise, really. Jews are always talking about Philip Roth. We speak of little else, in fact. And it turns out that my friend's mother knew him growing up in Newark, New Jersey, and she was not a fan. Philip Roth, she spat. He was always such a jerk. You know something? I always wished him ill. Well, good luck with that, I thought, as the lights went down. We were at the Red Shoes, perhaps the best movie ever made. Certainly the very best movie ever made about what it means to be creative. Moira Shearer plays Victoria Page, a girl whose single-minded devotion to the ballet makes her a great star. Everybody loves Victoria Page, and everybody wants to mold her to his own purposes. The multilingual ballet impresario, her husband, the company's composer. Finally, it's all just too much for poor Vicky, and moments before she is to take the stage in Monte Carlo, she snaps, and in full ballet makeup, her mouth a red slash, her eyes darkly rimmed and extended like pointed black leaves, she runs from the theater down the broad stone steps of the opera house, and she flings herself over an ornate balustrade into the path of an oncoming train 50 feet below. The greatest dancer of her time is gone. She has literally died for the art that in life consumed her constantly and completely. All is loss and sorrow, and still the ballet of the Red Shoes goes on as scheduled, as it must, and in Victoria Page's stead, a lone spotlight illuminating the places where she would have been dancing. It's a fitting tribute, this bright absence gliding across the stage, because, after all, without the work, there is nothing. Thank you.
I think the only appropriate thing for me to do now is to resign my work in theater criticism for David Rakoff. It was a vastly different time in 1980 when Lisa Birnbach kindly invited us into the slightly frayed, mostly New England-educated, and Muffy-made world of Prepdom with the official Preppy Handbook, which, by the way, sat with enduring poise atop the New York Times bestseller list for over a year. Now, 30 years later, she and designer/writer Chip Kidd have returned to the subject with True Prep. It's a whole new, old world, one with faces rendered comatose by Botox, the new boarding school, aka rehab, and gasp, diversity, like presbians or prep lesbians. Lisa Birnbach is currently a contributing editor for Parade magazine. She's authored or co-authored more than 21 books, including 40% Off is the New Black, The Brown grad has also worked in television, theater, and radio, where she won the prestigious Gracie Award twice. It is impossible that you wouldn't already know the work of Chip Kidd, a prolific book jacket designer. He's crafted covers for John Updike, Cormac McCarthy, Augustin Burroughs, David Sedaris, and the list goes on and on. He's the editor-at-large for Pantheon and associate art director for Alfred A. Knopf. His writing regularly appears on the op-ed page of the New York Times, and he's written several books. Please welcome Lisa Birnbach and Chip Kidd.
Thank you, Jared. You can hear out of this, and I can take your subscriptions for Time Magazine. It's great to be part of this book festival. Yesterday, I met Jared when we taped something for his show, and Greater Boston, right? And he said, "Well, good luck with your presentation." I said, "Oh, the presentation, the presentation." Chip, you brought the presentation, didn't you?
I did.
Okay.
I did. Yes.
Where is it?
It's at the hotel.
Oh, okay. So in that case, we thought we'd just tell you a little bit about our presentation. No.
First of all, let me say thanks a lot for having us go after David Rakoff.
Yeah, good idea.
Thank you.
David, you're amazing. I read your book, Half Empty, and I want you now to just read it all to me, because it's even more enchanting when you read it. We could talk about David for a while.
We could. I actually, in addition to the other people that he mentioned, that jackets that I designed the jacket for David's first book, which was called Fraud, which I now consider myself.
No. Okay, so here's what happened. It's hard to see you, and I can't see what percentage of you are wearing fleece. Show of hands. Anybody wearing fleece? See, you wouldn't have been here 30 years ago.
Security. Please.
And I can't tell how many of you were alive when the Preppy Handbook was published 30 years ago. Can we just see a show of hands? Were you alive? And how many of you have all the brain cells you had 30 years ago? No hands.
None.
No.
None.
Well, here's our presentation then.
All right, so I was in 10th grade, in a suburban middle-class kid in Pennsylvania. And the fad in school was something called boat shoes. Now, where we were in Pennsylvania was very much landlocked. However, everybody was wearing shoes as if they were about to step onto a sailboat. And so, of course, I didn't want to get left behind, so I got a pair. And these were, of course, Sperry topsiders. And then it was my birthday in September, and my cousin gave me this book that had a plaid rim around it. And I said, "What's this?" And she said, "Well, it's the Preppy Handbook. You have the shoes, so now you should have the book."
You idiot.
And it really sort of like opened my eyes to this whole world that was sort of hiding in plain sight. And it's fitting that we are here today to talk about it because it became my Bible, basically.
A year and a half ago, I was new to Facebook, and I didn't know the etiquette of Facebook, and I didn't like the idea that to get a new friend, you had to tell a stranger that he or she was your friend, because it's not prep. No, you're not my friend. I've never met you. I might like to know you. Can I just tap you? But no, you have to say, somebody is your friend. Will you be my friend? Kind of a Mr. Rogers gone very, very wrong, speaking of pop culture. And on offer, all the cool people I could meet, there was one Chip Kidd. And I thought, oh, that book designer. I'll just say hi to Chip Kidd, and maybe he won't reject me. Again, the proper etiquette of Facebook doesn't exist. And I haven't seen the movie yet, but someone needs to write a Facebook etiquette book. Anyway, anyway, I tapped Chip Kidd. And to my great delight, I heard from him right away.
Well, I got this Facebook request from somebody claiming to be Lisa Birnbach. I thought, well, all right, it's got to be some kind of joke. So I wrote back and I said, "Oh my God, is this really you?" And she wrote back and said, "Oh my God, is this really you?" And then I wrote back and I said, "Oh my God, it's really us."
So we had lunch.
So we had lunch. And audio technology is still in its infancy, by the way.
And it's not prepped to be a, oh, see, I still want to talk into a mic. Wherever I see a mic, I want to talk into it.
It's a natural impulse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually not prepped to be on the tech crew.
No, AV is not prepped. So we had lunch, and in the third hour, Chip said, okay, I'm just going to ask you why you haven't done it. And I knew exactly what it was.
Well, actually, what I said was, can I ask it? And she said, go ahead, everybody does.
Good answer, Lisa.
And I said, why didn't you ever follow up the official Preppy handbook? It came out in 1980, sold gazillions of copies, but then it went out of print in 1990, which for me, as working for a publisher, was sort of unimaginable. And so we sort of concocted...
Well, I said I didn't want to do it. I had left the stage with a finished product that I liked, and Chip said, well, if you ever want to do it again, maybe we could do something.
Well, and plus then somehow I came up with the phrase, it's a whole new old world, which it really is. I mean, when you think about in 1980, there was no tweeting and no...
Nor should there be tweeting now,
No.
really. No. No, yes, the world has changed. We have not changed. We have not changed. We need to understand that we are the same, unimaginative, but yet layered, alcohol-enjoying, sloppy, careless people that we always were, a little bit athletic, a little bit goofy, I lost a scarf yesterday, I don't know where it is, and I lost a pair of jeans on tour. How does that happen?
I don't think we should go there. But
Okay.
actually, the whole thing about alcohol was very touchy, because we had to...
It was very touchy. Now, those of you who read the book 30 years ago know that it was kind of vaunted alcohol as kind of a hobby. But now, I'm a mummy. Imagine someone let me do that. And very concerned about all our friends who've been in recovery programs, who are in rehab. So we couldn't really say, get drunk, and here are different words for vomiting. It just didn't feel responsible or very 2010.
No. Now, I myself consider myself to be in prehab.
Working your way.
I'm working my way.
He's working his way to Hazelden.
And eventually then I will get to retox. But that's, that's the way we prep now. But in between that, then we had to do this whole thing about rehab, and about when we started thinking about it, both rehab and these sort of white-collar prisons, like where they sent Martha Stewart.
They're kind of like spas, but they're boarding schools.
They're boarding schools.
Yeah. You get a roommate. You hope you get a good roommate. It's the same. You have to make your bed, or you can pay your roommate to make your bed.
Right.
Just like boarding school,
Right.
really.
Exactly.
Yeah. So things have changed. Of course, the biggest change in 30 years, not the internet, not the thingies that we carry around that we're wedded to. And by the way, people misbehave with their thingy all the time. I'm putting this out there, but you know that I wish my thingy were here, but Chris Cooper told me to turn it off. And everybody looks at theirs and is texting and scrolling and talking and texting and texting. I'm sorry, but the letter K and then send is not the same as a conversation.
No.
Nor should it ever be considered.
It's a speech impediment.
Exactly. And the letter U is not the same as Y-O-U. Is it that much harder to type the Y and the O? Is it?
Takes a millisecond more.
Oh, right. I have so many important things to do.
But even with all of that, that's not the biggest change.
Polar fleece. No, I'm totally serious. Polar fleece. Here are people who never wear an unnatural fiber next to their flesh, and we are now wearing recycled Evian bottles and Fresca. And we have to get used to it because young people have never led, anybody under the age of 21 has not known a fleece-free life. It's not easy to say, and it's not easy to wrap our heads around.
And it's not progress.
No. Do you know who makes polar fleece? Do you know the kinds of people who make it? are called textile engineers. Until I started doing research for True Prep, I didn't know there was such a thing as a textile engineer. People who spitball in a room and say, it could be more waterproof. I don't know. What do they do? This would be good for a bridge?
It's like what? Aquascutum's not good enough for you.
Yeah, exactly. And aquascutum means it's prep for waterproof wool. Did you know that?
I knew it once you told me.
Did you know that? Yeah, exactly. Well, because we're in a church and because we're givers, I shouldn't brag, but we are, we thought we'd work with you. Do you have a pencil?
I do.
We thought we'd work with you on some audience participation. And
this will make itself self-evident eventually, but what we're going to do is that great preppy party game, a Mad Lib.
A Mad Lib. Let's see. We need a man's name, a preppy man's name. What was that? Biff.
Works.
Okay, and we need a, let's see. We need kind of a word for all-around great guy or Renaissance man or something like that. Sport? Excellent. And we need another one. Wait, let's see.
How about another one? Different one. Same thing.
A swell. Okay.
A swell.
A place that Biff likes to go. Starbucks? Yeah. Another one where Biff likes to go. Nantucket. I think, okay, and one more place that Biff, where? The country club, okay. What, we need a season of the year. A season of love, maybe. Fall.
And then but a verb for something he's doing at the country club.
Oh, no, you weren't supposed to say that. That gives something away. They may get an idea.
No, they won't.
Okay, they won't. They're not that smart. They could be going to the jurisprudence panel. They're with us, so there are people. So at the country club?
Embezzling.
Embezzling.
Do you really embezzle at the country club? I don't know.
You could. Or you could just try to breastfeed your baby at the pool.
Where would you
that.
first meet him?
At Yale.
Good.
And what would Biff wear typically? What does Biff like to wear? What was that?
Izod shirt.
We don't call them Izods, everybody. You might want to take out your own paper and pencil. We call them Lacoste again. Izod is gone. Lacoste is back on its very own. Does Biff have another name? Maybe his given name?
Bartholomew. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Now where? Bartholomew?
Yeah. And what, you know how people have their own saying? Some people say egad.
What's
Some
his
people,
expression, his favorite
Yeah,
expression?
his favorite expression.
Poppycock.
Okay, and
Excellent.
then let's just go to, what do you think? What is the a name, a noun, like don't say what that is, but let's just say, maybe we should make that up.
This is today.
This is very today. This is a whole new old world, as you see. Okay, a name, okay, we can't do that paragraph. Okay, why don't we read this first one and then go from here to here and see if it still works, and then we can conclude with our song.
Okay. All right.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Or should we do, how much more?
Oh, God.
6 minutes.
That's not that much.
Once I hosted, do any of you remember a show called 5 All Night Live on WCVB? Never mind. Okay, maybe we should, it's our presentation. Just one second. We need the name of,
Of a school.
Oh, we do. We have that. Oh, where did Biff go to private school?
Greenwich Country Day.
Greenwich Country Day is, that doesn't go up to, sorry, Greenwich Country Day only goes to 8th.
Milton Academy.
Milton Academy, okay, where Governor Deval Patrick went to school.
Should I put that here?
Yeah, why not? I don't know if this is going to work. We've never done this before.
No, this is a first.
This is a first. Now, those of you...
Let's think of a song.
Okay. A song, perhaps, that preppies like to dance to. Excellent. Right. Okay. I'm too sexy for my Tattersall Viella button-down shirt that I bought at Brooks Brothers. Okay, I think we're ready.
I'm too sexy for my Lacoste.
You're right. Not Izod. Got that?
All right. So
okay. This is the do-it-yourself True Prep eulogy. What is more stressful than trying to write a tribute to a relative or friend when you are grieving and unable to focus? Focus was never your strong suit anyway.
Here, to make your job easier, is a fill-in-the-blanks eulogy intended to be a template, or at least a way to collect your thoughts about your beloved Biff.
Why don't you start?
Thank you all for coming today. Allow for time for seat shifting and murmurs.
Please murmur for a second. Okay. Yeah. How to best describe Biff?
He was such a unique sport.
He was the total swell.
We each have our different memories of him, whether he was at Starbucks,
or Nantucket,
or just embezzling at the country club.
We first met at Yale. It was fall of senior year.
And Biff was wearing a classic Lacoste.
Without socks.
I'll never... This is actually so lame it is preppy.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll never forget looking at Bartholomew the first time and hearing him say, "Poppycock."
What a singular laugh he had. It sounded like a crow. Ah! 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 And then there's more hilarity as you fill in the next 4 or 5 paragraphs. And then
we could be here all afternoon.
We could. And now, the alma mater
of the Milton Academy Marching Band will play "I'm Too Sexy for My Shirt,"
followed by their fight song.
Thank you.
Yeah. We have 3 minutes.
For Q&A.
No, we have 3 minutes for our presentation. Our presentation has 3 more minutes, Chip.
Well, they don't need to know that.
Wait, why don't we describe what you're wearing?
Oh, okay.
That always works.
I know, and can I throw David under this Volvo station wagon for just a second?
Yeah, sure.
Is this fleece?
It's fleece.
Not that kind of fleece. This is cotton fleece.
I doubt it.
Okay, this is...
This is 14th Street $10 fleece. I doubt any cotton got its way
Wow,
into...
this is so interesting. It says made of petroleum byproducts. I don't know what this is, but this isn't the fleece to which I refer.
Oh, it's not?
No, let me go see. I'll find somebody wearing fleece.
You mean the fleece that's fluffy on the outside too?
And washable.
We mean the Patagonia fleece.
So I'm told it's washable. Do you think I wash it? This is fleece. It's fleece. This is what textile engineers have come up with. It's sort of rough to the hand, and yet...
I love it because I can't do wool.
Are you allergic to wool?
It scratches me.
Oh, poor.
This is a dog.
Hi! Oh my gosh. Yeah, it is poor people who are allergic to wool.
Lisa, you've gone all Liddy Dole on us.
Pardon me?
You've gone all Elizabeth Dole on us.
Oh, yes, I know. I've gotten
Does
very...
anyone even remember Elizabeth Dole?
I remember Elizabeth Dole.
Jeez Louise.
That's really fleece. Do you want to come up and model your fleece? Yeah, why not? Come on. please come. We're going to have a little fleece fashion show. When you come up to the stage, please twirl. Please twirl, right, up and around. Okay, up and around. See? Look at fleece.
Pose, stop.
No,
pose.
stop. Could you sing A Pretty Girl is like a...
A pretty girl.
Now, what's your name? Peggy. Of course it is. Peggy, just get up on the stage so everyone can admire you. Look how, turn her, okay. Now Peggy is wearing lovely driving shoes. That must mean she's about to go on a race car drive race. And she's wearing no socks. She's wearing jeans, fleece, and her hands just that confident way that we have. That thing that says, I don't give a damn. I am fine. Thank you, both.
Thank you, Lynn.
So I think we have time for questions, right? So you can line up at the microphone right there. So while people are lining up, so Lisa, who's preppier, Chip or David?
Oh, see, not, okay, this is a trick question. Because you went to private schools.
No, I didn't.
You went to Columbia.
Private university, certainly,
That's
yes.
a school.
Okay.
Last I heard. Last I heard.
Yes.
Public. But yet, look at him.
I went to Penn State. The world's biggest high school. I was in the marching band all 4 years.
You were not.
I was so.
You think you know somebody. What's
right.
your instrument?
Drums, which is very unprepping.
Oh, man. Check, please.
Are
Yeah.
drums unpreppy?
Yeah,
No.
Oh.
yeah.
Piano.
Well, they're equally prep and non-prep, the two of them. Chip, I guess, is more prep because he just wants to be more prep.
Yeah.
But you did go to Columbia. And
You went to Columbia.
And you took a lot of, and you were an English major.
No, I was a Japanese major.
Even better.
Oh, that's better.
Because that's even less
Because
practical.
it's useless.
I seem
Right.
absolutely concise, whatever I would say. No, I was a vivisectionist. Oh, that's so prep. So prep.
No, seriously.
Really?
Majoring in something that you will not be able to do anything with in the real world is like...
Do you do origami?
Yes, you do.
Everything but. I am a Japanese schoolgirl in that way. I do arts and crafts.
Do you think wasabi is the most important condiment? No, because preppies have learned about food in the last 30 years, and anyone who's gone to Japan for like a week is suddenly very snobby about wasabi
Oh no, I actually
and soy sauce, low sodium.
I'm actually a traitor to my race. I actually like mayonnaise very much.
Yeah, we all
which
do.
turns out to be quite
Preppy. Right.
apparently.
We all do, yeah.
Do we have other questions?
Besides the ones for each other?
Well, I guess not, so we can continue with mayonnaise.
Yes, there's somebody there. Is fleece good? It's good. It's good because it's the way of the world, and we want to be of the world. There were some questions. Were we going to move up with the world or become irrelevant? So we have adjusted a little bit.
No.
No. You can give them a pass.
Repeat the question.
Do you have to be judgmental if you see somebody wearing fleece? We have a microphone right here, because it's hard for us to see, too.
We
so if
can't
you could
see
step
you.
up. But the question, do you have to be judgmental if you see somebody with fleece?
No. Give them a warm hello. Just don't touch them.
Here comes a gentleman.
I have a non-apparel related question for Chip Kidd.
Mm-hmm.
Did your work as a book designer just sort of impel you naturally into writing, or had you harbored that secret writing desire all along, and that's maybe what drew you to book design in the first place?
That's a serious question.
It is a serious question. And Chip, I expect a serious answer.
Woo!
Do I know you? As I said, I went to Penn State, and I was an undergrad major in graphic design, and they had an excellent program there. Even as huge as that school is, they admitted 18 people a year into the program with like 3 teachers, which is, of course, more information than you wanted. But I really did intensive study of graphic design for 4 years, put a portfolio together, and I knew I wanted to be in New York. But what I really wanted to do was design album covers for the Talking Heads, because that would be the pinnacle of civilization. And unfortunately, the graphic design firm that was designing album covers for the Talking Heads, which was called M & Company, which was run by Tibor Kalman, had no places for me to, didn't have any slots open for entry level. And so eventually somebody said, well, you should go to Random House and get freelance work doing book covers to tide you over. And so I did, and here I was 21 years old, I didn't know anything, had no experience, but this very nice woman at Vintage Paperbacks gave me a cover to do for a book called How to Work for a Jerk. And it was a coping book about how to work for a boss that you hate.
Basically how to work.
How to work, yeah. And there was pre-computer, so I went home and I did this drawing of that. I based it and made it look like an EC horror comic, like a creepy comic, like how to work for a jerk. Like it was, the letters were dripping and all this. It was ridiculous, but I thought it was great. And so I gave it to the woman who was the art director, and she laughed and she said, well, that's very funny, but you're fired. But she had shown it to the art director at Alfred A. Knopf at the time, which was a young woman named Sarah Eisenman, who is actually now one of Boston's finest and has been for a while. She needed an assistant. And so she hired me, and I figured, all right, I'll do this for like a year or so, build up my portfolio, and then go design album covers for the Talking Heads. And last week, I have been there for 24 years. Wow. Or you may weep openly. But to actually answer your question, I always loved books. And so I just found myself in this world of books, and at Knopf, of all places, which is like one of the greatest publishers ever. And so over the years, like when you read, you're constantly reading manuscripts, and you're reading them in their kind of raw form. So you feel like you see how it's done. You learn just by like reading, and all these incredible authors that I was working for. And I don't know, about 10 years in, I started reflecting back on my college experience. And I had these two really unique, interesting teachers, and I decided I wanted to try and turn learning about the graphic design process into a novel. And so, I did feel like I was in this milieu where, okay, you can try this if you want to. And so I started working on it, and it took a while, and I published the first novel, which is called The Cheese Monkeys, which is about learning all the basic principles of graphic design, but also trying to make it into a comedy. So I think the design fed into the writing, which fed into the design, and they really overlap. But I think a lot of what made it work for me was that I was a designer at a book publisher. And I was just reading all the time. And I know David was at HarperCollins.
I was in the book trade, and it did demystify it in that way.
Yeah, I think it at least makes you feel like you can give it a go. You can try.
Yeah.
I had a different experience. Not that anybody cares, but once I was in the lobby of Random House years ago when I was writing my first book for Valentine, and I met the head of Random House, who was then a very tall man named Robert Bernstein. And I found him so imposing and so important that I inadvertently curtsied when I met him.
I think we had a question.
It happens.
And you were friends ever since?
Yeah.
I just have a question for David.
Yes.
You talk in your piece about how difficult the process is for making art, and I know you've written in the past about how difficult the process for writing is. I think you describe it as pulling teeth, but from a particular appendage. I was just curious whether or not, you know what I'm talking about.
Sorry.
I was just curious, is there any particular piece or any couple of pieces that you are particularly proud of as a writer that it came out and you swelled with pride as you put the final period? Is there any that you're really, you'd cite as your best work?
No, I hate all my children equally. No, I have to say, because I find writing so incredibly difficult, whenever a piece gets done, I'm just astonished, and I have no idea how it happened. Writing has never gotten easier. It's only gotten harder and harder. Yeah, it just is so much harder. The only way that I can liken it is, for two reasons it's hard for me. One is that it only ever begins badly. You know, so rather than cooking where you're assembling a largely edible meal out of palatable ingredients, it's like reverse engineering something edible out of rotten food. So that's difficult. And it's difficult because you have to sit and tolerate yourself during that period. There's no shortcut. You simply have to do that, which is rough. And it's so also counter to every other human task, which as you get older, you just gain some kind of mastery over. So it's not like, you know, I'm 46 years old. It's not like every time I sit down to make an omelet, there's the danger that the eggs are going to burst into flame and the whole house is going to be destroyed. Every time I sit down to write, that's an actual palpable danger. And it's never gotten easier. So it's both horrible because you have to live with yourself at your least attractive and least talented. And it's so different. You know, you could be out doing things that you're very good at, you know, because you've gotten older and you're good at things. So I even say in the book, it's like, if you've fallen in with a group of like-minded people and you're getting laid on a regular basis, why would you even bother? Unfortunately, neither of those things are true for me, so I continue to write.
Lisa, do you mind if I ask you two questions?
No.
Okay. First of all, I'm a big fan. I was introduced to the original a couple of years ago. I was interning on like a no-budget film, actually. And it was just sort of like this weird, odd murder mystery / Desperate Housewives thing set at a prep school. And they were using the original Preppy handbook just sort of as their like definitive text because nobody had like went to prep school or knew anything about that world. And so even though it's like a really tongue-in-cheek book, they were like reading it and they had everybody working on the book like read the book. And so I got into it and I really loved it. And so it's kind of a big inspiration for me. And so the first question I had for you is kind of a side question, but I was just going to ask if it's decidedly unprep to ask Chip what kind of shoes he's wearing, because I really like them.
No. I encourage you. First of all, thank you for that. And I think asking Chip about his shoes is something everyone should do on a daily basis.
I sweated over which pair to wear here, because I had a feeling that we'd be on stools. But believe it or not, these are Ralph Lauren Polo something or other. And I've only seen them for sale one place, and I snapped them up, and I regretted it. Well, they had green and blue too. And I thought, this is so decadent, I can't get all three colors. So I'll just opt for the red. But they're really, really comfortable, and you know, I put arch supports in them as I do with all my shoes.
I did not know that about you either,
or
or the drums.
It's very important. So that when you get to the airport, you can just flip them off. So, thank you.
That was a good question.
My second question is just, as someone from LA who went to public high school and has no money and nothing named after him, is there any hope, or what advice would you give if I wanted to, I guess, marry a preppy?
Oh. Well, you know, that's interesting and a very touching question, of course. And first of all, when you think about it, a year or semester in a prep school does not a preppy make when you think of the fact that Kim Kardashian went to a private school for a year. So don't feel like your not having gone is going to keep you out of the running with a preppy love connection. Also, I'd just like to say that staying in Boston or Cambridge is a good place to start, I would think. You know, I think lurking in the precincts of, lurk may not be the right word, stalking is certainly not the right word. No, but being frolicking in the vicinity of Preppies, you know, keep your eye on the prize, and you're well-spoken, you're well-dressed. Preppies don't have much money anymore, you know, because there is something called the recession. So, so not having money should not keep you out of the running.
The only thing I would add to that is it worked for the Great Gatsby. It can work for you, too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This will have to be our last question. We're almost out of time, so we'll just have to make it quick.
Yeah, it's a quick question. For Chip, what was the worst reaction that an author ever had to one of your book covers? And you don't have to name names, although it would be great if you did.
Oh my God. The worst reaction that an author ever had to one of my book covers. It was True Prep. No. Well, all right. This is just off the top of my head. The film critic Richard Schickel. Do you know who he is? God, I hope he's not here. He is the great film critic for Time magazine for many years, and he had done a biography of Clint Eastwood. And I had this great idea of like, so the paper jacket was this, stock photo of Clint Eastwood from some movie just like sneering like this, and I like blew it up huge. And then I simulated the fact that I shot it 3 times and blowing holes basically in his face, but of course he just still looked like it just pissed him off. And so there were these like 3 big bullet holes in his face, and so it was like Clint Eastwood, by Richard Schickel, like in the holes. I'm like, yay, this is so cool. And so the editor sent it on to him, and he hated it, and violently. And so basically, I found this picture of Eastwood by Albert Watson, and we got the rights to it. And then basically just did your kind of average, not average, but I mean, basic bio cover with him and his name and at the bottom. And then Schickel came in the office to sign with Clint Eastwood, who is this big. He's adorable. He's like a little toy.
Oh, have fun.
Very, very cool. And so I, of course, come up with, there's a big line in the office, and I come up with my book, and I said, yes, Mr. Schickel, I designed the cover. And he said, oh, I love what you did. Did you see what that other asshole did? That guy is such a jerk. But thank you. So, I don't know. There are lots of those stories.
All right, well, thank you all for coming today. We appreciate your spending this hour with us. And once again, thank you to David Rakoff, Lisa Birnbach, and Chip Kidd.